Welcome to the Indie Author Showcase. I am multi-award winning indie author Chad Robert Morgan. And as you can see, I am still running the podcast solo, so applications are still open for any bibliophile that would like to participate in co-hosting the show with me. Doing this by myself is not nearly as much fun as you would think. Although if you've watched the show, you would probably get the impression I do like the sound of my own voice. Speaking of which, the sound of my own voice, I have been working very hard on the audiobook for my latest horror book, Fear. Fear will be available to order at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and through shopspectralink.com the same day this episode will launch. So Friday, May 2nd, Fear will be available. So yes, let's go Indie Author Army. Let's go out there to every Barnes & Noble. Put your credit card down and say, I want Fear by Chad Robert Morgan. Yes, all three of my loyal listeners will go out there and order copies. But the audiobook is, I think, cursed. I have been having a horrible time finding time to record with everything that's going on. And I do the recording, I do the audiobook myself. Because for me, that's the final edit, right? Because when I read through it, I can find last minute errors that I made. When you're reading it and you're forced to read every single word in the sentence, you can't glean, right? Because when I'm reading, sometimes I'll start, just sort of skimming and scanning, and I can miss details, right? I'm horrible at that. But when you are having to do the audiobook, you are forced to do every single word. In fact, I would recommend any author out there, even if you're not going to produce an audiobook, or even if you're going to do an audiobook but you're going to hire like a professional narrator, do a version yourself, right? Just hit the record. Just get Audacity and use a head mic. It doesn't matter if you're, because you're going to throw it away anyway. But read every word out loud. Because even if it's grammatically correct and all the spelling is correct and everything like that, it still might sound a little off. Because there's been times when I'll have something like, Sean walked through the door opened, and then the door did this, and I'm like, okay, how many? It's a door. We get it. I've mentioned it 5 times. It gets repetitive. When it's just printed out there, the brain has a tendency to kind of skip details, right? It's like, I get the gist. Let's keep going, right? It's just human nature. When you're doing the audiobook, you can't do that. You have to hit every word. And sometimes the weirdness kind of pops out in your phrasing and that kind of thing. So I don't call the edit final until I've had a chance to get the audiobook done. So I have had all the chapters recorded, and then I go through the painful process of editing. So one of the things I do when I'm recording the audiobook is I will often repeat lines. And I will go through and pick the best one, right? Sometimes it'll be different flavors of the line, Sean picked up the gun. Sean picked up the gun. Sean picked up the gun. And I'll go for the inflection that best fits. Sometimes it's helpful to have multiple takes because you'll be recording and then you'll listening to it, and you'll hear on this one, you hit the mic, or there's a dog barking in the background or something like that, and you're like, oh, thank God I had this other take, because I'd have to re-record. Sometimes I'll even split them. Like, I'll have a sentence, and I'm like, okay, I like the first half of this one and the second half of this one, and very carefully splice it in the middle, put the two together. So I will record like an hour of audio and get that whittled down to about 30 minutes. Easily. So it's time consuming. right? And you got to listen to yourself speak. And there's nothing more humbling than listening to yourself drone on for an hour. And sometimes you're just sitting there going, like, man, this delivery is horrible. I just want to go. If you're just doing it as an editing, it doesn't matter. But I mean, if you're actually producing an audiobook and you're like, oh my God, I got to go back and I should really redo the scene because I sound like I'm asleep, or I need to redo the scene because, that accent's terrible or something. I don't know, whatever. But going back through the editing, I did something new with this audiobook. I was recording off my laptop. Now I do that because right now I'm recording off my PC. My PC is very big, very powerful for work, and so it's got like 5,000 cooling fans. And right now it's all making a lot of background noise that I didn't have to go through isotope and remove. And that makes the audio sound like more processed and everything like that. So with the laptop, it's way quieter, and I still run it through isotope and take down the background noise, but it's less aggressive and the audio comes out way better, right? What has happened is apparently about every other chapter I recorded, I inadvertently recorded it off of a different mic, and so the sound quality dropped. So I have to re-record about half the audiobook now. So it's just, the thing is cursed. It's going to take me I wanted to have it on Audible at the time the book launched, and that's just not happening. I've edited maybe a third of the book right now, and I have to re-record half of it. And my laptop's in the shop on top of everything else. So the audiobook is taking forever, which is a real bummer. Because it's also keeping me from working on my next book. I started on Intergalactic Space Force 3, and I can't get back to it because I am busy reading books for the podcast, doing the podcast, doing shows, and in every spare time that I have, I'm trying to get Fear done, which just does not want to get finished. So, huge delays on my part. I've never had an audiobook that was this difficult to get done. So, apologies for that, for the 3 people that actually care. But yes, it has been a very painful and difficult process this time around. So, have any of you had issues doing audiobooks? Do you do your own audiobooks? Do you go through ACX and find a narrator? Do you go to a professional sound studio? Are you like, audiobooks? I don't got time for audiobooks. Tell me your opinions. Write back. Shoot me an email. Let's talk about this. Let's open this up for discussion. I would really love to get viewer feedback and have these kind of discussions. I think it would be very helpful. Because right now it's just me talking in a room, right? That's not nearly as much fun. And I'm also just sharing my personal experience. My personal experience may not be the best fit for you. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm doing everything correct. I am not omnipotent. I am not the master of all things indie publishing. I'm just another author like yourself, just struggling to get his book out. So I'm sharing my struggles with you. I would love to hear your struggles and share it with me, share it with the audience, and then maybe together we can come up with some best practices or ways to improve the workflow, make things a little less painful for all of us. Because that's the purpose of the podcast. Indie authors supporting other indie authors. Real quick, by the time this episode airs, we will be at Rancho Jurupa Park. I've been told I've been mispronouncing it this entire time. I've been saying Jurupa Park. And they're like, no. It's a Spanish J. It's Jurupa. I'm still not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Rancho Jurupa Park. My nose itches today. I know. Yeah. Rancho Jurupa Park for halfway to Halloween. I'm really excited about this. The organizers have been very busy getting this all up and running. We will be at booth 60. I got my booth space today, like literally like 15 minutes ago. So we'll be right off the fire lane corner booth. So come see us at Rancho Harupa Park, where you can get your copy of Fear on paperback for the first time ever. In about a week or so after that, I think it's about 2 weeks after that, we will be at Pasadena Comic-Con. It's a one-day event. It's a Saturday. Normally held in January, but it was postponed due to the horrendous fires in Altadena in the Palisades. And then a week after that, we'll be right back in Pasadena for Monsterpalooza. This will probably be one of the bigger events that we do this year. Monsterpalooza is actually expanding this year. Monsterpalooza is a fairly sizable horror con, and this year it's going to be even bigger because they're taking up another building. They're taking up the theater and putting even more vendors in there. So we're going to have even more people to sell you your Halloween and horror themed merch. So please see us there. About a month and a half after that, I am going to be trying Hot Mare Expo for the first time. This is the second year they've done this up in Fresno. So this is going to be like one of the more, what do I want to say, risky ventures, in the sense that the booth fee was actually very inexpensive. But of course you're now adding mileage and hotel fare, so it's going to kind of balance out a little bit. I would say all expenditures is probably going to be similar to what I spend on Creep IE. And Creep IE is on the more affordable side. I know like Monsterpalooza and a full booth at WonderCon and Midsummer Scream are considered more or less premium spaces. They're running roughly about $1,000 for a 10x10 space. San Diego Comic-Con, you'll spend $3,000 for a space that big. Currently, right now, Creep IE is about $750. So compared to those, Haunt Mare Expo is dirt cheap. Halfway to Halloween is dirt cheap. Getting a small press table at WonderCon is dirt cheap. You're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of the $300 to $500 range at that point for these events. With the economy right now, I would really recommend trying to keep your expenditures down. So definitely go for like a small press table at WonderCon. I think that's a great experience. I think that was like $350, $400. You don't get a lot of room, but I mean, if you're just selling books, you don't need a lot of room, so you're doing good. I bring other stuff, right? Because I do the 3D prints of the monsters based on my books. If nothing else, it gets people's attention, right? People go, oh, that's cool, and they come and check out the booth, even if they don't buy anything. But I got the t-shirts and everything like that, and it helps a little. Once in a blue moon, I'll sell like one of my big monsters, and that's like almost booth fees right there. So sometimes I get lucky, but most of the time I'm selling almost nothing but books. I'm selling like 90% books, and it's hard to make $1,000 booth fee just off of book sales, because books are they're a tough sell, really, as I have found, and I'm talking to other authors. You get a lot of, I don't read, I don't have time to read, I don't read a lot, which is very disheartening. It's very hard to be an author and you hear that. So I'm always looking for good venues where we have avid readers. So again, I open it up to the viewers. I've heard of a couple of places. There's one actually coming up in Griffith Park. Let me see if I can bring that up real quick. Our friend of the show, Casey Cordell, was just telling me about this. Now that I think about it, in my rambling, Okay, yeah. So, Enchanted Realms Book Fest. This actually sounds like a really cool thing. So, bringing it back up again. The reason I did not apply for this one is it sounded like it was more fantasy, which is not what I currently write. This is Brown News titles and meet local fantasy authors, which again is not me. But it did sound like a very interesting book fair. And again, that is October 11th at Griffith Park. I totally want to go check this thing out. If it turns out that it's not strictly fantasy and there's a little bit more elbow room, I would totally love to sign up for that, because a day at Griffith Park would be fun. Another one that our good friend Casey Cordell told us about was Fall into Books Fests. So this is September 20th in Garden Grove. So again, I believe this one's already full for this year. But this is definitely another venue I would like to check out and put on my possible to-do list. Speaking of, there's another horror event happening right after Creep IE Aftermath. So we have Creep IE Aftermath in September. The week after that, there is a Terror Trader event in Chandler, Arizona. And some of you are like, where the hell is Chandler, Arizona? Chandler is a suburb south of Phoenix. And from what I have heard through discussions with other vendors, is that the events that are done by Terror Trader in Arizona are off the hook, right? That people just come out in droves, and they are excellent conventions. So, again, this information is only secondhand, but the wife and I have a plan that we're going to do Creep IE Aftermath, and then the week after that, we're going to drive out to Chandler and check out this event. It's only about 6 hours from here. It's a little longer than Fresno, so it's not that long of a trip. Some of you are like, 6 hours. I'm a California resident, and I drive farther than that to go visit my dad, right? And we're in the same state. So 6 hours is not a big deal for us. But yes, we are going to go and check it out. And again, this is another one where the booth fees are very reasonable. So I would love to go out there, or I will go out there. That's the plan, unless something happens. Go out there, check out the event, and see if this is something that we want to do next year. And then if so, add that to our event list. So looking forward to that. Again, if there are any events that you're doing as a viewer, as an indie author that has gone particularly well, if there's an event that has gone horrible, you've like, for example, one event that I did, and this isn't a slam on the event organizers, because they were wonderful, but it was a very painful experience for me as a bookseller, was the LA Festival of Books. And I thought I would clean up. It's a book festival, but people just came out to see the big celebrities, and that was it. Like, I could not get any customers to, I don't read. I was like, then why are you doing a book festival? This is for readers, it's kind of like going to a Star Trek convention going, I don't like sci-fi. It's like, then you're in the wrong place, really. So I don't know how that happened. Maybe it was a bad year. I don't know what happened, but it was a very expensive and painful experience. So we have not done that again, and I'm not planning on doing that again. Another one that was painful, and again, this was not the fault of the event organizers, but the Miami Book Festival, very great event. I actually did relatively well, with the caveat that we were rained down on Sunday. And again, can't blame the event organizers for the weather, right? The weather is the weather. But it was just all the way in Miami, having to cart everything over there, the hotel, cart everything back. It was just too much for me. I would definitely do the Miami Book Festival again if I was more local. But it was just too much of an investment for me to do at this stage. Maybe if once I'm a little more successful, a little more well known, and people are actually clamoring to get my book, then it might be more viable to drive cross country for an event like that. Again, the event organizers were fantastic. If you are in the Miami area, I would definitely recommend the event. Same with the LA Festival of Books. I would definitely go check it out. I would go to that. I would be hesitant to ever be a vendor there again because, again, it's massive. You get lost. There's 500 authors all trying to get people to buy your book, and they can only buy so many books on a day, But, I mean, if you are more of a bookstore as opposed to an independent author or a publisher, and you're trying to get exposure, that's a great event for that, because there was definitely crowds. It was huge. It was big. As an indie author, you're struggling upstream, I think. But if you're like a publisher, like you got a cadre of books, you're just trying to get your name out. You don't care about really making booth fees or anything like that. It's just a marketing expense to you. Totally do the LA Festival of Books. I would recommend that. So it just sort of depends on what you're looking to get out of it, I think. But again, these are my experiences. This is what I'm doing. I would love to hear from you guys. What are you doing? What events do you have lined up? What events have worked well for you? What events have not worked well for you? Have you done some of these events and had different experiences? I would love to hear that. Maybe I just did something wrong, or caught them on an off year or something like that. I would love to know that too. One bad event does not necessarily mean that, might have just been a quirk. I don't know. Talk to me. Let me know. Shoot me an email. With that said, it is book review time. I do miss doing this with my son. I really, truly do. It was way more fun. So our book today, get it in camera here, Mike Robinson, Walking the Dusk. So, funny story. He was one of 3 people sharing a table next to me at WonderCon. One of the other persons there, I am currently 3D printing the Emperor's sword from the first season of Discovery, because she wants to do some sort of cosplay thing. So I was like, I can 3D print that for you, and it turned out to be huge. So I think I got the final pieces done. The last couple of pieces had some errors, but I'm just going to putty that up, I think, and then we should have all the pieces, and then I'm just going to give it to her and says you can assemble, that kind of thing. But Mike was chatting with, I turned around and he was chatting with Peter Clines. And Peter Clines, if you don't know, is a New York Times bestselling author. Got famous for doing the X-Hero series, which I highly recommend. Great series. Basically, superheroes trying to keep the last pocket of humanity alive during the zombie apocalypse. And then he moved on to other things. He did, I think it's, Room 14, The Fold, Terminus, and he used to host the Writers' Coffee House in Burbank before COVID. I believe he still hosts it down in San Diego. So if you're in the area, I would definitely recommend. He is a great guy, and I've mentioned him in the podcast before. He's one of these guys that he's just a great guy, right? Like some people try to be a good guy. Some people are there when you need them. But this guy's just an all-around good guy. I only know like a couple people like that are just, it's just in their nature. They almost can't be an asshole. It's against their nature, right? They're just a good guy, period, in the conversation. And he always comes across as one of those guys. It's just fucking awesome. And he came over and he chatted with me a little bit, but I was like surprised that and it turns out he came down to talk to Mike Robinson here. because they had worked on a project together like 10 years ago or something like that, and he still remembered him, and he heard that he was there and came down, and to his surprise, I was there, and to my surprise, he remembered me, because again, I mean, it's not like we're drinking buddies. I just went to his coffee house every so often, and hadn't seen him in years, and he remembered. He came over in time. I don't even know if he remembered my name, but he remembered my face. He remembered seeing me at the coffee house because he's like, "Oh, hey." And we had an interesting talk. We shared some information, just like I was sharing information at the beginning of this podcast. I'm doing this event, he's doing that event. And there was events he hadn't heard of, and there was events I hadn't heard of, because there's a gajillion of them, right? So just sharing data. So even somebody as veteran as he is, who's doing major panels at things like WonderCon and Comic-Con, can still pick up information. That's the important thing. It's like we always got to be talking, because there's always a new convention somewhere out there, and just word of mouth is the best way for us to communicate these things to each other. So back to my booth mates, Mike Robinson. So he had several books on the table, and I said, well, what's your best shot? What do you got? What do you want for the podcast? And so he donated Walking the Dusk. And I have to say that this is probably, keep in mind, we're about ready to hit May, so we're not even halfway through the year yet. But so far, I gotta say, this is probably one of the better, if not the best book I have read this year so far. And that is not pandering. That is just, it is, to me, that good. I will say, it starts off strong, right? It starts off kind of like a weird horror novel. And then about halfway through, it kind of makes a bit of a left turn. And we start having like aliens in the afterlife kind of thing. Which, I mean, it was really kind of tripping balls kind of story at that point. And it was a little weird, but reading this, I was getting some major Wrinkle in Time vibes. This is what the book reminded me of. It was like adult Wrinkle in Time, if that makes any sense. The main character is Charlie, and the story cuts back from when he was a kid growing up to the adult he is now. And as the adult he is now, he's starting to remember and piecing together what happened to him as a kid, because he kind of blocked most of it out of his mind. And so, yeah, basically something, I don't want to get too spoilery, but something in the early chapters happens to his sister. And she starts having issues. And Charlie goes on this very ethereal, otherworldly journey to try to put things right, without getting, again, too spoilery. Again, very fascinating book. Very, again, how do I want to say? When I first got into it, I was like, okay, this is going to be pure nightmare fuel, right? Because that's what it starts coming across in the beginning. But halfway through, it really changes to a very different kind of book, as I mentioned. I'm trying to think of what I can say without getting into spoiler territory. But I mean, we are exploring the concepts of other dimensions, of other realms of being, of what happens between life and death and that kind of thing. So, I mean, just a very fascinating world, a very fascinating concept. Some of the surprises in the book really, like I didn't even see that coming. That was, and if you look back on it, it's like it was kind of foreshadowed in the beginning, but it was just such a bizarre, out of left, not out of left field, like it wasn't earned, but just like there's no way you would have predicted that would have happened. Because only in this world would that even be possible, and it just it kind of like floored me in a couple of these spots. That, oh crap, that happened. And it's like, oh wow. And then when she said this in the beginning, that and that's, that kind of. So yeah, very clever book. I would highly recommend Walking the Dusk by Mike Robinson. This is, in my opinion, book of the year contender. Again, we're only halfway through the year. There's still a lot to get through, but as of right now, this is probably one of the better books I have read. So please check this one out. So that's it for the podcast this week. Again, I am, as you are watching this podcast, I am probably right now in Harupa Park, Rancho Harupa Park, with a big tent and a big sign and my very first paperback copies of Fear. So please come check us out. Remember, we have the Patreon if you want to support us at patreon.podbean.com/indieauthorshowcase. Also, if you want to support the podcast, you can always buy our merch at shopspectralink.com. You can get an indie author tote bag. I mean, you got to have the tote bag, right? You can't let NPR have all the fun. We have tote bags, t-shirts, you name it.